Midweek Politics with Dave Pakman on midweekpolitics.com.
Hey, welcome back to Midweek Politics. I'm David Pakman. Make sure to check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/midweekpolitics. Joining us is Marcy Winograd, Democratic candidate for Congress running in the same district where Democrat Jane Harman is the current representative and seeking re-election. Hey, Marcy, thanks for calling in.
Oh, thank you, David. Great to be with you.
So 4 years ago, you ran against Jane Harman and you lost. What's different this time?
What's different this time is that we have a volunteer infrastructure to build on. During the last race, in which I got almost 40% of the vote in only 3 months, challenging a 12-year incumbent, we built a great volunteer base. So we've been walking precincts and phone banking for months now. What's also different is that we're reaching out to the Latino community. We really didn't have a whole lot of time to do outreach last time. We have a volunteer coordinator in the Latino areas of our district. And we also have a headquarters, an infrastructure that's a physical one, where people can come by and get involved, and we've been phoning like crazy.
So without going into, kind of a long detail list of your resume, which one job or position you've held makes you most suited to be one of the 38 members of Congress?
I would say that my founding of Progressive Democrats of America's Los Angeles chapter is right up there in that I have, in that capacity, been a leader in organizing a progressive caucus of the state Democratic Party to fight for an end to these preemptive wars, for single-payer health care, and for election protection.
So there's some concern. I was recently in California, and I spoke to several people about the race that you're involved in. There's some concern among some California Jews that in an effort to disassociate from what you call, invasion, occupation, aggression by Israel, some of them are concerned you might be going a little too far into an area some Jews would consider just being flat out anti-Israel, to the point that they're not totally comfortable voting for you. I spoke with, some of them personally. Not everybody had the same opinion. What should they be concerned along those lines?
I am a Jewish woman of conscience. I helped found the LA Jews for Peace chapter here. We've been very outspoken, calling for an end to the blockade on Gaza, protesting what happened most recently with the assault on the flotilla.
I follow.
We have raised money to rebuild homes in the West Bank.
I follow, but I have to. I'm aware of those things, and I appreciate that you want to be clear about them. But again, I'm just presenting what was mentioned to me as a concern by some in your district about voting for you. So one speech I read of yours mentioned that you support a one-state solution. Should Israel exist, in your opinion?
Israel absolutely should exist. People have lived there for many years now. It should exist as a secular democratic state, in my opinion, and I say that as a Jew because this is being performed or carried out in my name, so I feel I have a stake in this.
Sure.
I say this as an American. We're giving Israel $3 billion a year. I don't think we want our tax money to support a blockade of 1 million people or more.
So when you say that, I mean, just very directly, it should exist, but would it be called something different? You're saying it should exist as something else. Would you call it something else, or what?
I really don't have that answer. I think in many ways that's up to the people who live there.
Yeah.
And we know that there are a lot of Jews and Palestinians who live there. Jews and Palestinians lived for many, many years in peace and harmony, and there's no reason why they can't again. I personally am not a Zionist. I don't believe in a Jewish homeland. Politically, of course, I would support any peace agreement both sides could agree to.
So what is
peace? There are too many lives at stake here.
So when you say you personally don't support a Jewish homeland, are people wrong if they hear that as saying Israel should not exist as it is today?
Well, when you say Israel should not exist, it connotes violence, and I'm a nonviolent person.
No, I'm not connoting any violence.
David, I have problems with the language that you're using.
Okay.
I call for transcendence, for transformation, for equality, for dignity, and for human rights for all.
One thing that I think is important to consider when voting in a primary, especially when one of the candidates is an incumbent, is which candidate will have the better chance in the general election in November. I assume you believe you would have a better shot than Jane Harman in that general election. Tell us why.
I would have a better shot at winning a November election because voters are very angry about the runaway greed on Wall Street and the billions of dollars, $69 billion for AIG alone, that our Congress invested in bailing out these big banks so they could become even bigger and deny credit to small business owners now folding. Would I have supported the bank bailout? Not in the incarnation it was presented to us. It was a virtual no-strings-attached bailout that was executed overnight, like within 48 hours. You can read Vanity Fair's account of it. What's the name of your bank? How much common stock do you own? How much do you want? It was that.
And specifically,
fax us your request and we'll give you what you want. That's wrong. I mean, that was a theft of our Treasury, and we should have demanded a lot more accountability and money to protect the people who were going under and who were victimized by the predatory lending. So
specifically, what are one or two big things that you would have, specifics that you would have changed about that?
Well, I would have said, if we're going to bail out these banks, then no bank should hold more than 10% of our national deposits. Because we don't want these banks to be too big to fail. We don't want to face this crisis again. That's one thing that I would have done.
Let me remind our audience we're speaking with Marcy Winograd, who's a Democratic candidate for Congress in California. I recently spoke with Michael Dukakis, who kind of splits his time between where we are in Massachusetts and California. And he was very critical about the lack of development in trains and high-speed rail in the U.S. And California strikes me as a state that really could benefit from many levels of rail development. What would you do along these lines? What's your idea?
My idea, David, is to expand the reach of aerospace. In my district, the 36th Congressional, which runs from West Los Angeles to the harbor, we have a strong anchor of aerospace in the South Bay. And up until now, there are two choices: build a bomb, build a rocket. Certainly there are more choices than that for our brilliant engineers.
But what my question was more high-speed rail.
Transit? Why can't we get federal contracts to build mass transit in Los Angeles? Why do we only get federal contracts to build weapons?
So specifically with high-speed rail, tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I support high-speed rail. Why is it that only Europe can have high-speed rail? In Los Angeles, we're a sprawling suburb in search of a city, as many like to call it. And when I'm roaming this urban countryside, as you will, people will say to me, you know what, Marcy, I agree with you about these wars, but more importantly, do something to stop the traffic.
And trains would certainly help there.
I think so, yes. And more bike lanes, and I have the endorsement of Bikeside, which is a local cycling organization, and I've endorsed their Bill of Rights, which at the top calls for the ability for cyclists to travel freely and free of fear, safely and free of fear. I support that.
We've been speaking with Marcy Winograd, Democratic candidate for Congress. The website is winograd4congress.com. Thanks so much for calling in, and I wish we had more time.
I appreciate being able to talk to you and your listeners. I invite everyone to get involved.
Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon. Good luck.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we will take a break and be back with Chris Manns. And plenty more after this. There's so much going on today. We'll be back. Thanks for listening.
Politics with Dave Pakman on MidweekPolitics.com.
Midweek Politics is brought to you in part by Jackson & Connor, classically modern men's apparel in Northampton, Massachusetts on the second floor of Thorne's Marketplace. By DIF Design, specializing in custom business websites at difdesign.com. And by ShenTrition.com, provider of all-natural superfood and adaptogenic herbal blend at ShenTrition.com. To find out more about underwriting Midweek Politics, visit MidweekPolitics.com.